right, welcome to the show. Leo Treadwell joins me. He's going to share his journey and his perspective on life and how his organization, I Am the Matrix, is bringing to life the concept of autobiographical feedback to help people process life, heal, and tap into their human potential. Leo, welcome to the show, my man.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. You look like you're doing awesome. You got that background you've got there. That doesn't look like a Zoom background. I know that you live somewhere tropical, so maybe let's just start there, man. Where are you at today?
Yeah, so I'm on the north end of the Dominican Republic, small town Cabarete, and it's a super beautiful place, super healthy place to live. Amazing community of people from all over the world who live here. So it's a really expressive environment to be in.
Oh, very good, man. How long have you been in the Dominican?
So I've been here for I've been traveling, spending my winter for about 12 years. And then the last 3 years I've lived. Yeah.
Well, dude, I spent some time to just at least understand at a high level. I read your in-depth bio. You're the exact kind of guest I love having on my show, man. You are the kind of person who is trying to make massive impact in the world, who has come across an epiphany, who has built out a scaffolding of thought that's important to share. And where do you want to start, man? Do you want to start with childhood? Do you want to start do you want to jump in and start giving people a perspective on autobiographical feedback? What makes the most sense on this trajectory?
Yeah, I would say really it's not about me at all. It's really about the work. So I would prefer to talk about the work. I think that the world's in a place right now where there's so many things changing so quickly. I mean, I was talking to my wife and my team yesterday, and I'd probably seen 20 or 30 different YouTube posts that were there relating to, potential nuclear attack.
Yeah.
What kind of world are we living in? Like, what's up, And we're getting into a spot right now where, when I was a kid, I'm 53 years old right now, but when I was a kid at 25, I started diving into alternative medicine, peak performance, which then led to rabbit holes of potential histories that are different from the ones that we were told. Learning about lost books of the Bible or these megalithic structures that are, across the globe. And one thing that was, on the fringes is, hey, maybe our government's not as good as we thought it was. There was like the JFK thing and,
Oh, yeah, sure.
Nixon and all that sort of stuff, and Eisenhower's last speech. But now what's surprising to me is that you can watch mainstream media and you can see people say, hey, maybe we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And conversations like this are becoming too normal, where we're not trusting our government and we're, concerned of nuclear threats or global pandemics or food crises or global warming or the AI or the convergence of technologies. And there's just a lot going on for humanity right now. And I think that, like with Leonardo DiCaprio's most recent movie, Don't Look Up, I think that's a big freaking part of our problem is we don't want to acknowledge, the social hypnosis that we're living in at this moment in time. And we've got all this amazing creative potential that we understand the information and how it works, but we're not applying it.
Yeah.
And that's really what my work is about.
Well, how much of this has to do with our infancy in order to process and understand how technology is a tool in our day-to-day life? Because I don't think we're going to be able to deconstruct or at least get away from the advances in technology that are constantly shifting things. And we get so much information through that technology, which is why you get 20 to 30 articles about nuclear fallout. Many of them are maybe opinion pieces and pundits and things like that. And then some of them might be, people who are really trying to, peel the onion back and understand what is the overarching risk. We can't get rid of technology in that way. How are you looking at technology in the future when we talk about re-engineering or looking up, if you will?
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not really super concerned about tech. Let me take this back. Let me say this the correct way. I have my concerns for sure about converging technologies for sure. But I agree with you. I don't think we should, get rid of them. There's no way that's going to happen anyway. There's far too much momentum in that direction. But I think probably the biggest thing is us as human beings not realizing who we are in relationship to the world around us. We only create technologies that mimic the potential of ourselves. We create a horse and buggy because we can walk, and we're looking for a better way to get from one place to another. We create a computer because we process information, and we're looking for a better way to process that information. We're creating automated robots right now because we do manual labor, and we don't want to be doing manual labor. And all of these things are a part of what I call the mechanical butterfly. So when we take a look at like the caterpillar as an example, inside of a caterpillar, it has these things called imaginal cells that carry the blueprint of the butterfly within it. Okay. And eventually enough of these imaginal cells are generated inside the caterpillar where its immune system begins to attack them. And it's almost like seeing the Spartans going against the Persians, these two, armies. Obviously the Persians can overwhelm the Spartans, and the Spartans are holding a small space trying to keep them from getting through. But at the end of the day, what happens with the caterpillar is both destroy each other, but the blueprint of the butterfly is remaining with all the raw materials to build it. So I think for humanity right now, we are in this amazing spot where we know we've got hundreds of trillions of potential accessible neural connections that can solve any type of problem we can imagine if we learn how to ask the right questions and apply our focus and our attention and intention and create the right agreements, et cetera, et cetera. We have DNA that can hold up to 215 petabytes of information per gram. So this avatar body that we're walking around in right now is super complex. And nothing in nature creates something this complex unless there's a reason to use it or it's dormant. And I truly believe that we have a lot of dormant potential right now inside of these avatar bodies. We also, for the most part, most people, quantum physicists or neuroscientists or even cellular biologists would agree that there's this organizing intelligence in the universe, tunes in and tunes out of information. It's basically like it's tuning into one field. So why did I mention the mechanical butterfly at the beginning? The mechanical butterfly is watching the transformation of humanity through transhumanism, through the convergence of the analog and the digital. And at the moment, that's where we're going, which is fine. If we end up, becoming hybrids with AI and singularity, where people like Ray Kurzweil, who's a futurist, and he's like got an 87% correct predictions for the future. And he says, I think it's by 2029, we'll have singularity. And lots of other organizations now are organizing around that date. Well, that singularity leads us to that mechanical butterfly instead of waking up to the potential the human body mind has on its own. And that's kind of what I'm fighting for. Before we throw in the towel with who we are, it's like, why don't we find out what we are?
Wow.
We've got all of this wonderful info right now that can be programmed. We know how to program it. We've got marketing campaigns and corporate narratives and AI generated algorithms and all these things that are controlling the direction of our thoughts and the quality of our emotions to get us to do dumb shit. We could be organizing this to actually bring up and wake up the potential within us, the memory stored within us, organize this intelligence outside of us, and create a super dynamic world while harnessing what we have with this technological exponential growth.
So, Leo, there's a question. If we have dormant potential inside of us, how did you stumble upon your own dormant potential and starting to realize that? And like, what does that really mean? What's that process like? Illustrate an example so that I can maybe wrap my brain around this concept.
You got it, my man. You got it. All right. So 25 years old, 28 years ago, diagnosed with cancer. I got a tumor in my back in between my lumbar and my sacrum, pressing down on my sciatic nerve. I was raised primarily with a male role model with my grandfather, who's really old school. He was like, "Don't take me to the doctors, goddamn politics."
we all know people like that for sure.
He was served in the war. He's a quartermaster on a battleship. And he was like, "Man, I don't trust these people around me." He said, "So if I ever am supposed to be put into a nursing home, please don't let me go. Take me out in the woods, leave me alongside of the trail like the Native Americans did. Let me die with some respect." And that's the way I was raised. So when I was diagnosed, I walked out of the hospital and said, I ain't going back. I'm going to figure this out on my own, or I'm going to die trying. And, 28 years ago, that's what brought me into studying people like Itzhak Bentov, who wrote Stalking the Wild Pendulum, which pretty much, like all of Joe Dispenza's work, is based on this book from, like, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago by Itzhak Bentov, talking about how wave frequency, like if I go like this with my hand, you can't hear it. Why? Because our audio senses only hear things that vibrate at a particular frequency. I see things, but that's because my photoreceptor cells only see things that oscillate at 32 hertz. Yet if I have a mosquito going like this way faster, I'll go because I can tune into that and I can hear it. So we know all material reality are these patterns with the air pressure around my hands making a movement and sound, or the light frequency that's creating wave frequencies that weave together. Now I see light, or I see substance. Like when people say, like, oh, next you're going to tell me the sky's not blue. It's like, it's not. It's not. We've got this electromagnetic field around our planet that absorbs all of the colors in the visual spectrum except for blue. So it reflects blue back. So we're seeing everything but what it actually is. And understanding who we are in relation to the world around us and how our senses work is a huge key to waking up to our potential. So read that book. Then I went to Tony Robbins. Then I did all the Deepak stuff. Then I got into Carolyn Mace. Then I got into Les Brown. I got into Michael Beckwith. Everyone you can imagine. I started because I wanted to heal myself. And I was like, dang, okay. So I got the chief of staff from Harvard Medical School, Deepak Chopra, telling me I need to do A, B, and C in order to create a healing response. I got Tony Robbins, kind of the godfather of coaching and seminars and all of that stuff, saying I need to recreate neural associative responses to how my body's reacting to the idea of having cancer, and then look at what may have propagated it to begin with. I go to something like Landmark Education. It says, we live in language. We're meaning-making machines. And then I go back to Deepak, and he says, listen, you can go to Hoffman Maroche, one of the #1 pharmaceutical companies in the world, and go buy interleukin-2, which is an anti-cancer drug, or go hop on a Magic Mountain ride and have a whole bunch of fun and have your thymus gland behind your heart produce its own interleukin. So I was like, okay, so I'm putting all these pieces together. But I don't have enough time in the day to do all these different things.
Yeah.
I need to create something that's automatic. I need to create a system. So when I created this system of autobiographical feedback, now I began to realize my potential, because I created a story that came from my future and I encoded it into external anchors in my environment using a technology that's thousands of years old called gematria. It's how our occultists and mystics and elitists have ciphered information into the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Bible, and in many other secret societies, they use technologies like this that actually weave both sides of the brain together, all of the cortexes of the brain together. They can bypass the limbic system, the reptilian brain, and the fight or flight response, and you can gain far more access to healing chemicals inside of the body if you have these external anchors designed in a way to interrupt your pattern, interrupt your emotional state, and bring you to something that's empowering, thrilling, designed around a timeline that you're consciously creating, thus creating a healing response, interrupting your patterns of thought and emotion, getting the hypothalamus to create those new chemicals, getting all the hormone producing glands in the body to balance the hormones, and then reconstruct our biology, as Candace Pert taught how we could do that with Bruce Lipton in the Biology of Belief and Molecules of Emotion. So we have all of this information that has not been organized in a way that allows us to optimize our time and optimize our potential until we can manage the quality of our thoughts and the quality of our emotions. That's where it's at. That's the base. That's the cause. We've been dealing with symptoms for far too long instead of getting to the root, what creates material reality, understanding the sound, the vibration, the light, the vibration, how it weaves together. We got 8 billion people on the planet with 6,000 thoughts a day, 6,000 thoughts per day. That's the most recent numbers, about 6,200. That's 48 trillion putting out into the universe that's creating tomorrow. That's 48,000 threads that's weaving the tapestry of our physical reality tomorrow. That's 48 trillion seeds that are planting the probabilities that will amplify tomorrow. So humanity is like super underutilizing our collective intelligence, and we're just going with crap we're being fed.
All right. I'm going to put a pin in this because the little hamster that's running on my brain has slowed down quite a bit. He's like, wait, hold on. I'm tapping out. You said a bunch of stuff there. I want to say it as simply as I can. Tell me if I'm on the right track. One, the quality in our thoughts, how we have them, how we process our internal dialogue, and the way that we analyze our thinking or think about our thinking and tap into our emotional states. We've been kind of divorced from that as a society. We've been engineered in society to explore different, well, I don't know. Things have just gotten easy and convenient, and we've lost touch with ourselves. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, well, I would say I agree with you, but that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. And then what you're saying is we have all these. This is where I'm getting lost, and maybe you're gonna have to simplify what you said for me, and if there is a way to say it a little bit simpler, that there's all this information about how our body can produce healing responses to things, and how we can contribute to the collective goodness of the world. It just hasn't been structured, and it hasn't been necessarily taught with purpose. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I caught part of it, but
Yeah.
there's holes in my net, Leo. You're gonna have to take me back to the premise. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's break this down to something very simple. A couple of simple perspectives. So I had a friend of mine that I was surfing with this morning. His name's Jonathan Tomato. Beautiful guy. He's got like 100 hectares of rainforest properties converted into a permacultural garden, off-grid solar, wind, et cetera, et cetera. He lives a life. But he recently was told he may have cancer.
Okay.
The moment he was told, I just happened to be at this place up in Rhode Island. And he's like, man, I'm stressed. And I was like, bro, don't get stressed. He's like, I'm not going to get my results for about 2 weeks. And I said, I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. We're doing things in this way. Because I'll tell you what, the people who understand medicine, they understand that the moment a person is told that type of information, they have this they have a response that takes place in the body. It's psychoneuroimmunology is what it's called, and it works with psychoneuroendocrinology. And automatically, the psychology of the person changes when they're given that information, and instead of creating a healing response, it creates a more stressed response.
Okay, I can
Now,
relate to that.
Jonathan doesn't know how to manage the quality of his thoughts or emotions. So it puts him at a disadvantage when he's told that information and has to wait 2 weeks. The probability and possibility of his cancer increasing over that 2 weeks goes up like tenfold. Because now he's putting attention and intention into the possibility of having cancer. So do we already know that's how it works? Yeah. Is it something we talked about at the dinner table? No. Is it something we talk about in medical school? Not a lot. You know, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, is the #1 oncologist in the Dominican Republic. She's traveling all over the world lecturing, and she's like #1. She's in the newspaper and radio, etc., all the time. She has no idea about any of this stuff at all. It's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. So there's more people making money from cancer than there are actually people dying of it, which is an incredible statistic. And yeah, so we're underutilizing just the healing response, let alone, as another example, I was speaking to this young man yesterday. He's from Santiago here in the Dominican. He's got multiple businesses. He's maybe 25. He's a great surfer, great kite surfer. He's into martial arts. He speaks multiple languages. And I said, dude, I want you to take my program. And he's like, yeah. You know, I've been kind of tossing that around. And he said, why? And I said, well, because we're translating it into Spanish right now. And I want to get this into the hands of all these young kids here in the Dominican Republic, like ASAP. Just give it to them. But I want the reference point of a young man who is Dominican, who understands the European American culture as well as the Dominican culture, that can see this and then help me put it into that type of language that they can pick up on.
Yeah.
Why? Because he, like you, like me, like, you know, these people who are, you know, maybe more alpha type A oriented, we're born with this drive inside of us. But just because we're born with this drive inside of us doesn't mean that doesn't exist for everybody else that's out there. There's lots of people that are hurting. They're trapped in this feedback loop of their thinking, which creates emotional states, which then repeats that thinking. And they say like 95% of our thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday. That doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't have to be the case. We know with applied neuroplasticity, and especially using an external anchor system, we can consciously and competently redesign our neural network. And that's amazing. That's amazing. And when we look at things like the double slit experiment, or how the reticular activation system works inside of the brain, or if we look at the holonomic brain theory with the holographic universe theory, or look at simulation theory, they all point to our thoughts create probabilities that amplify and create reality. Heisenberg uncertainty principle, same thing. We put attention on the subatomic particle, that subatomic particle's behavior changes. Why? Because creation is our superpower, and we are oblivious. We're walking through saying, the matrix is doing this to me. No, it's not. We are co-creating this matrix. Because we're not seeing who we are in relationship to the world around us in reality. We've got a completely broken mechanism connecting in relationship to our creative potential.
And this creative potential, or this mechanism, is energy? Is it a shared energy? Like, how would it manifest? Like, if we all started having happy thoughts, and and that's an oversimplification, but like, if we all were tapping into this with purpose, and what would what do you propose would happen?
What kind of car do you drive, if you don't mind me asking?
I've got a Ford F-150, 2017 or 18.
Okay. How often do you see Ford F-150s when you're out and about?
Constantly. Well, I did when I was wanting to buy it, and then I guess I do see them quite a bit now, because I'm always kind of doing the I don't know, looking at the accessories. I'm always looking at like the different tire and rim configuration. So yeah, I'm very in tuned when I see F-150s on the road.
Okay. So that's a great example. So if we are creating an emotional connection, because you have an emotional connection to your truck, it's like something you take pride in, something you enjoy, something that you had to save money for or have to make decisions about, and all that stuff. So when you got it, you're like, cool. And your brain was totally tuned into, all right, this is mine. And every time I see one, or every time I'm out and about, I'm going to see these things probably more than you see any other type of vehicle that is out there. So because we have 6,000 thoughts a day, 250 thoughts an hour, 4 thoughts per minute, ranging between 10 and 20 seconds each, whatever we put our attention on is going to expand. Whatever we have an emotional connection to is going to expand. And we're living in this holographic recreational universe, recreational universe that creates probabilities based on where our attention is at and our intention is at. Is our first program, as an example. We get people to get clear on where they would like to see themselves if they were living their epic life a year from now. What would that look like? What would that feel like? What would the contributions they'd be making? What are the experiences they'd be having? Well, most people, when they sit down, they're like, geez, I got no idea. I say, all right, what about these areas of life? Where would you like to see your relationships? Where would you like to see your physical body? Where would you like to see your reflection with yourself and your self-image? Where would you like to see yourself financially a year from now? And what are the experiences you want to have and the contributions you want to make and the feelings you want to feel? I don't know. I got no idea. Okay, well, if you did have an idea, you'd probably start to notice those things in your world around you and be able to incorporate them into your life and then build upon them. But because we are chasing our tail, instead of realizing that time can be emitted, our projections can be emitted, and the word emit is EMIT, it's time backwards. If we're coming from the future with a super clear idea of where we're going, and if I have these external anchors that are outside saying like, hey, Leo, remember, you want to help Percival get it set up for his first home. Hey, Leo, you want to help Cincinnatus, get squared away with some of these fears that he has around, rock climbing. If I see those reminders and they're asking me questions like, what's a simple step you could take today to move Percival in that direction? Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I could call up a real estate agent and a credit building company and connect them with my son and let that go. It'll take me maybe 3-4 minutes to make both those calls. Now I got causes set in motion that I wouldn't have taken action on had I not had that reminder, that external anchor that's saying, hey, this is where you want to go with your relationships with your kids. If these anchors are constantly bringing up these different areas of your life and inviting you to put your focus back on it, you're going to begin to see the trail of breadcrumbs that will take you to that. But if your mind is constantly just thinking about whatever, past programming, the algorithms and marketing and agendas and narratives that we're being fed every single day, and you're not
Ah,
taking the time to design your life consciously, intentionally, then of course you're going to be going along with that tide of mediocrity. And it's very simple. Take control of our own design of our neural networks, create these external anchors, use everything we know about neural associative conditioning, psycholinguistics, neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, blend that into these external anchors so we can rewrite the rules that's going on in the subsets in our mind. Instead of having thousands of hours of precognitive commitments to who the world is that are limiting my potential and thousands of hours of preconditioned emotional responses, let's start to delete all of that stuff and rewrite the script. Never in the course of humanity have we been able to actually design our own software inside of this powerful avatar body that we're living in. And that's what I Am the Matrix is teaching.
but you'll never be able to allocate the energy and the resources necessary if you don't liberate yourself from the stress that we have today. That's what I'm picking up.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
I'm starting to get it now. We're talking about making room. We're saying we're taxed. We're emotionally taxed right now. We've hit the brim of what our biology is meant to take on, many of us at least. The amount of inputs, the things that we focus on, what we give our attention to, as opposed to what we give our intention to, right? And so we need to shift. We need to shift it and be very intentional about what we want and what we need and how that manifests in our life and how we can create good around us and start working that journey and turn down the volume maybe on these other influences.
Well, I would say that's impossible unless you have a system like we're teaching. Because
Right.
unless you have external anchors out there to be constantly doing this, the mind can never control the mind. I mean, the Buddha was super clear on that a long time ago. You can't fight the mind with the mind. You get in that self-referring feedback loop again. You need to interrupt the mind with something you took the time to consciously design. Because if we're not going to do it, for sure, there's forces out there that are going to take control of our mind and lead us in a particular direction and create an emotional response to those directions. For sure. Go to like let's powerful medicine. In the world, everybody in the world would do great to maybe take 2 or 3 Vipassanas a year. It's probably the best thing a person could do to optimize their mind. But once they get out of Vipassana, they're going to get thrown right back into the
What
circus of
what
everything else again.
what is that? What is that word you just used? Pashna?
Vipassana.
Vipassana.
Vipassana. Yes.
Sorry, I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So Vipassana is it's a science of the mind that is actually designed to go with the work of autobiographical feedback. Uh, so what Vipassana means is to see reality as it is, not as you wish it was. It means to look at the cause, not at the symptoms. Take off the rose-colored glasses and take a look around and be like, holy smokes, like, okay, this is the reality that I'm living in right now. What am I going to do? Okay. In the process of Vipassana, it's a 10-day silent retreat where you follow very strict uh, rules in order to get to the root of your mind, not the surface of the mind, but the root of the mind. The surface of the mind is caught up in thought. The roots of the mind are caught up into sensations. And again, that goes back to how our nervous system and our mind create sensations inside of our body. And you hit the nail on the head when you said it's about letting go. So in this process of moving through these sensations in Vipassana, we're actually letting go of memory, pain, anguish, suffering, all of these things that are coming up through that silence because we learn to become equanimous with it. Equanimity and awareness is the key to success when it comes to moving through the world today. Have a clear direction of where we're going. Have those anchors interrupting and bringing us back, bringing us back, bringing us back. And all of the other distractions that are coming up, be aware, oh, okay, but I'm equanimous. I'm not going to give it any energy. I'm going to let it keep going and keep my focus on what I'm here to do, what my purpose is, what my path is, the blueprint of the butterfly within me. I ain't got time for all these other people's ideas for what they want to do with my mind and my emotions. I ain't got the time for that. I ain't got the time for that. You know,
That's beautiful.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so, I mean, you've been working on this concept for, the journey through your life and then putting structure around it. How have you seen it change others and change community?
So I beta tested this work a little over a decade ago.
Okay.
I actually shared the stage with Deepak. I worked with Tony Robbins' team. I worked with all the guys, John Assaraf, Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Kiyosaki, all those guys. I went and beta tested my work, and it was killer. But my mission is, and for since I was 20, 25 years old, I've seen this larger global agenda coming into play. I worked with the Earth Day Network when Leonardo DiCaprio did in the year 2000. Um, I helped organize a global community of outreach and NGOs to let everybody know, hey, we got garbage piles out there larger than the size of Texas, like 3 to 5 of them that are constantly swirling around. That was 22 freaking years ago.
Oh,
No one's still doing anything hardly about it at all.
like in the ocean, the
So
Great
my
Pacific
mission has
Garbage
been
Patch.
global consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, patches.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mission has always been, let's wake up as a race. When people are, I trained the Navy's Leadership Academy. You probably saw on or the NGROTC Leadership Academy, as you probably saw in my bio, for 5 years. And that was part of that was during, the Iraq War, the beginning of the Iraq War. And I saw how things played out. And it was very clear to me, like, we should not be going in here and like killing tens of thousands of people right now. We're not liberating anybody. We can see that in hindsight. But for me at that moment, I was super clear. I had two young boys under 5 years old, and I was looking at these stats of all these kids that were getting killed, and then their fathers were becoming terrorists. I was like, I would be a terrorist. Yeah. And then I'd be driving down the street and it'd say, like, support the troops. I'm like, I'm proud to be an American. And I'd say, I'm not even proud to be a human. I want to get my work out there and wake people up to come on. We're working in these easily manipulated mental constructs called beliefs. We should be living from these shared values that we all have. There's not a single father out there that wants to see another father's kid killed. Not at all. But we're working from beliefs which are cheesy, cheap mental constructs. And it's embarrassing to be an intelligent human being right now and see this happening so easily to people, being just led down these paths of ridiculousness, allowing our lives to be constructed in this way when we have the power to project and create a whole new reality if we wake up this potential that's inside of us. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at the benefits of autobiographical feedback, a ton of different ways: the healing response, success, peak performance, human development, creating new social constructs, realizing that even like with the founding of our country, right? Even with the founding of our country, our founding fathers were working from John Locke's philosophy on liberty, which meant people can do whatever they want to do. As long as they don't hurt another person or their property, people are free. But now we're living in this time where we've lost so many freedoms and we're living in these beliefs. We've moved away from a value-based political system to a very superficial, easily manipulated, belief-based political system. I ran for Senate in 2008, and in the senatorial brochure, they said, put down what you believe in. I put nothing. So I'd have a whole bunch of people calling up like, hey, why didn't you put anything in there? Well, I want to know what you believe in. What do you mean? What do I believe in? I'm running to be in a role of a legislator to write laws for the people in my community that I serve. And if those laws filter through our state and federal constitution, then they're going to pass if enough people want them. And there's a ton of laws we could rewrite right now to give people more freedoms and more value for the time they're spending in the workplace, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why are you thinking that my beliefs have something to do with my service of you working within these constitutions? Yeah. But that's the construct we have. And that's got to be interrupted, in my opinion, if we're going to see the best of humanity. We have to take our power back.
Wow.
I talked a lot.
Well, no. I'm hanging in there, man. You talk, but you've got these we have to take our power back. It goes back to kind of cascading everything that you've said here. I mean, this is about the individuals taking our powers back, the collectives taking our power back.
Yes.
And that's through intention.
It's through external anchors, creating that life and having it come back and interrupt your thoughts from the past. Intention and attention will get you nowhere because the mind's already constructed. We have to reconstruct the mind. We have to.
Okay, now
The
that's
mind can't
clicking.
change the mind. Yes.
So then,
Yes.
all right. So the name autobiographical feedback, like unpack why you call it that. Like what was it could have been called a lot of
Yeah.
things, but
Good
I'd
question.
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Good question. Okay. Two reasons. Two. One, because you create that autobiography and you encode it into this sacred language that's thousands of years old called gematria. Gematria is where they take a vibrational phonetic value and assign a numeric value to it. So when you see combinations of numbers, it automatically has within that the anchors that you have for the life that you're designing for every area of life. So
So is
you
it,
say,
oh, I'm sorry,
go
but
ahead.
like, is this like when numbers like come up in your life all the time?
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no, no,
has
no.
nothing to do with that. Because I see the number
Nothing.
25 everywhere, and it's like my lucky number with my wife, and all this. That doesn't matter. That's not what you're talking about.
No, but that's still a pattern interruption. That's a good thing. It
Okay.
creates a different emotional response and it puts your focus in a different place. And that's beautiful. Okay. But I want to take this way deeper than things like numerology or 1111 or any of that stuff. That's like preschool stuff. I
Okay.
want to take this stuff deep and encode into it a neural associated conditioning, psycholinguistics, neurolinguistic therapy, neurolinguistic programming. Everything that the marketers and algorithm generating AI bots and stuff are doing right now is sophisticated. It is extremely sophisticated. We're creating something more sophisticated. We're creating a weapon for the battlefield of consciousness, the playground of consciousness, the recreational universe that we're living in. So it's called autobiographical feedback because you create your dream autobiography for yourself, encode it into the external environment, into numbers, signs, and symbols. Again, using these very old sacred technologies with modern day applied neuroplasticity and all these healing techniques that I had mentioned for transformational techniques for the body mind. So you're blending those two things together, and then that autobiography feeds back to you. And now it starts to automatically change the biology, autobio, within the feedback system. It starts to repattern because as they fire together, they wire together, fire together, they wire together. And when you have a numeric language or a symbolic language that's got all of this encoded into it, where you have numbers on one side, language on another side, images on another side, diving into the seat of emotions underneath, you got the prefrontal cortex that's saying, I'm now noticing, like you notice the F-150s, we're creating super highways inside of the nervous system that are totally new with new emotional responses linked to these external anchors with contextualized three-dimensional imagery, incorporating all of the senses with contribution being involved in this, experiences being involved in this. So when these probabilities amplify, like, God dang, I just created this anchor like 3 weeks ago, saw it a few times, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing all these pieces that lead me in this direction that I didn't see before because I didn't give the universe the organizing intelligence it needed, the information it needed, the information it needed in order for me to be able to interact it in a way that has me liberate that blueprint of the butterfly within myself.
Roger that. Holy smokes. Okay, so I'm hanging in there. And this is like one of the most interesting conversations that I've ever had on the podcast because I think that what you're saying is simple, but the science behind it and the way that you apply it and the purpose you have to put around it, that there's some obviously there's decades of nuance that you have developed around this. So how do people start to incorporate this in their life? Do they work with you? Do they work with your team? Do they go out and read suggested book? Like how do you get off the rocking chair and start applying some of this into your day to day?
Yeah, right on. So what's kind of cool about this, and you're right, it is very simple once you understand the concept. It's like, oh, as a matter of fact, I was watching a clip from Lex Friedman last night,
Sure.
and I posted it to my community group of people who are going through our program. And Lex and this biologist, I don't remember the guy's name, neuroscientist, biologist, cellular biologist, neuroscientist. They were basically describing what happens when we get to a place. How liberating would it be if we create this software that could reprogram our own mind with a feedback mechanism? And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. And he's like, yeah, that'll be amazing. Get to that spot and unleash human potential. And I was like, I gotta get on. Oh my God. Anyway, so like it is simple once you understand the concept. Like, wow, I think it was like something like 60,000 marketing images the average person sees in the world today when they're on social media and they're walking through a store or open up their medicine cabinet or open up their refrigerator. Like
Yeah.
60,000 external anchors they're subjected to every day. Why? Because it works. They're capturing your mind. They're capturing your attention. They're getting you to create new buying behaviors, to invest your time, energy, money into other things. So great. Let's use technology, but even more powerful, more sophisticated on ourselves that have to do with what I want to get my mind enrolled into, leading me where I want to be going in my life. Screw all of these other people. I don't need to keep hearing about stuff we don't even know if it's true anymore. There's so many false narratives that are out. Who cares anyway? Let me have my mind back. Let me learn how to use this amazing suit that I've got on, you know?
I think that's
So
what
it does sound simple in its concept. When people start getting it, and they are starting to say, check out this guy's podcast because he had a whoa in the middle and he really was able to like wrap his head around it quickly and then tell me back saying, I was like, that's this guy got it. This guy got it. Also, right when I say that, or when you say that there's a ton of sophistication in here, and that sophistication is necessary in order to interrupt this massive machine that's going on right now. People don't want our money, they want our minds. You know, if anybody goes to iamthematrix.com, our first three programs actually create are actually one body of work. The first three programs, it's the Great Spiritual Reset, Creating Reality 2.0, and the Language of Enlightenment. People go through our first three online programs with coaching from me, because I give coaching to all of the clients that go through these programs. At the end of those three programs, they will have more control over the direction of their thoughts and the quality of their emotions than they ever dreamed. And they will be able to know from day to day to day, like, holy smokes, they will begin to see these probabilities amplify. They'll see these coincidences or coincidences amplify. They'll notice the synchro destiny between where they put their attention, what they created, and now how it's showing up in their life. And that is going to use, when we go back to this idea of psychoneuroimmunology, just like if I'm told I might have cancer and I got to wait 2 weeks, my body might produce more cancerous cells. The same thing's true in the opposite direction when we realize, wow, look at how much power I have. And I'm understanding through learning this coursework and the information and the science that's in it, how I create reality. Now I'm getting excited and I'm able to create reality faster because that's how my mind works. It can either work in the negative or in the positive. We can either get into this state where it's like I'm unconsciously and incompetently creating more cancerous cells in my body, or I'm unconsciously and competently, two totally different worlds, now beginning to see how I create my reality. And as I keep seeing it more and more, it speeds up.
Is there, and this might be a naive question, but is there a right moment in time to take on this edge? Is this for everybody? Is this for people that are a certain phase of growth in their life? Like, I don't know. Like when I look at like customer journey, I always think about like, you know, what is the right moment in time for an individual to pick up a product or a service to do this? So do you need to do any kind of baseline work? You need to be at a point in time to receive this?
No. The most difficult program I created was the first one because I had to design it. It's called actually ABF Kindergarten, Autobiographical Feedback.
Okay.
Yeah. So inside of that, inside of the Great Spiritual Reset, is the subtitle is the Autobiographical Kindergarten. So the first 5 days are very basic human development foundational days. It's a 10-day program. On the last 5 days, it's introducing autobiographical feedback. Oh, so how do we take everything that everybody else is already teaching about human development and now encode it into the system in the second 5 days? So in that second 5 days, we give a ton of ways that these anchors are going to be built into your life. And for a lot of people, they're going to be like, holy smokes. Like, I'm not a numbers person. And it drives me nuts when people like tell me like, oh, you're really into numbers. I'm not into numbers. I'm into anchors that create the most powerful neural networks in my brain.
Right.
And the numbers and symbols and signs happen to have that more than letters do, far more powerful than letters do. So just when people start that second half of the program, they start to realize like, wow, just when I'm seeing all these anchors now, it's like, I'm getting really clear in these different areas of my life and where I want to see myself a year from now. And it's triggering different emotions in my body. But it's a lot of information. But now I'm getting where this guy's going. So in the second program now they've got a base in what it's about. And now we can dive in to create layers and layers and layers of encoding, again, some pretty simple things that you don't have to be a Tony Robbins or Harbecker or Landmark or Joe Dispenza guy to get, because it's pretty basic stuff. And then when you get to the third program, we actually begin to design into it a language where everywhere you go, by the end of that third program, you're literally going to be seeing it. You're going to literally be having a conversation with the universe. And this is where it pops, because you'll start to realize, holy smokes, this intelligence, this mind that filters through me and these other 8 billion people, it's always trying to communicate to me. Now I've created a language where it can. So if you're driving to work and a car pulls in front of you and the license plate is, you're like, what? That timing is incredible. And that's where that, again, that psychoneural immunology kicks in, because it starts to reinforce like, oh, okay, oh, wow, I'm bigger than I thought. I'm actually entangled with everything.
Yeah.
The universe has actually been looking for a way to talk to me my entire life. And if we look at the first 6 dimensions of what it means to be a human being, we know the fourth dimension is time. Okay. We know the second dimension is polarity. It's flat. We see dark, light, right, wrong. We know the third dimension is contextual, and it's just what we were walking around it. You know, the fifth dimension is the awareness of tuning into all this stuff and interacting with it. The sixth dimension is this architectural aspect of who we are that knows why we're here, trying to communicate to us in the third dimension using the second dimension polarities and dualities as, don't do this, that's why you're getting resistance. Go this way, you're starting to feel a little bit better. Oh, but you're addicted to being this, having this type of lifestyle. So now you're going through the dark night of the soul as you're getting to your liberation. Keep going though, don't stop. You gotta let that old part of you die in order to wake up and emerge. Just like the baby coming out of the womb, the baby's like holding on to the blood, like, I ain't getting out of here. There's no way I'm not gonna get out of here. It's holding on. It doesn't realize it's being born. It doesn't realize it's actually stepping into the world. So I think that's where we're at with humanity right now, is taking ownership and understanding and getting excited about what happens.
Yeah.
If, like, instead of having it just happens to me, what happens if I take control over this bad boy?
And Leo, some of the things that I love that you're talking about, and I talk about on this podcast quite often, is just like your internal operating system, like upgrading your operating system. That's, you can't run new software on an old operating system. Like sometimes you just have to, you have to upgrade in order to get there. I've spent a number of years as a high performance and executive coach, and I help individuals, point A to point B, get where they're going. I don't do a lot of the life coaching stuff. I played in that space a little bit. It's not, I just really like business goals, high performance in that context. And some of it's in fitness. The thing that I can't get away from though, in that space, is how people's beliefs and values, and I'm using those words, maybe not in the same way that you're using it, but I'm using it in the context of religious values or, system of belief, dogmatic system of belief that people have. How does what you are saying either complement or conflict with existing theological belief systems? Or can people fold that in really well, or is that something that doesn't conflict at all? Like, I'm just very interested, because we're talking about changing your perspective on the world, and a lot of times the lens that people look at the world through is one that has some kind of like religious or higher power type context.
Yeah, good question. So if somebody wants to quit smoking, it's a lot easier to help them quit smoking. Someone doesn't want to quit smoking, it's not going to be very easy to help them quit smoking,
That's too simple, Leo.
So we've got thousands of internal rules, if then statements, because the human mind's programmed very similar to the way basic computer programming works. We have a syntax stacking of language. And we have for next loops. We have if then statements. So if this happens, if this person says this, if whatever, then I'm going to feel this way. Those if thens, those are preconditioned emotional responses. If this person says, oh, and I'm going to feel this way, and I'm going to walk away. Well, if people choose to take a look at, wow, how are my rules, my if then statements, how are my rules like totally sabotaging my ability to move forward? We got a really simple one we know about, everybody should know about by now, is the success and failure rules. If I learn something, then I'm successful. If I show up, then I'm successful. If I quit, then I'm a failure. Great. Make it super easy to succeed. And the only way you could fail is if you quit. But many people have rules that are, if this person signs up for my program and they don't like it, then I'm a failure. If I'm walking down the street and somebody, bumps into me with their shoulder and doesn't say anything nice to me, then I'm going to feel like I'm disrespected. It's like, we got all this just ridiculous sub-programming there. So people have to decide that, I want to get rid of some of these precognitive commitments and preconditioned emotional responses. I know, I can see from psychological studies, I have thousands of hours of these things that just limit so much for me. If they can look at that and say, okay, I'd be down to like letting some of this stuff go in order to have my values met, to be able to see my kids get to this place over here, or to be able to contribute to my community over here, or to be able to have business relationships with these people. Like there's a saying that I say so much to so many people all the time. It's, because people are like, why are you working with the military? You're supposed to be a spiritual guy helping this and that and the other thing. Why are you working with law enforcement? Why are you working with governmental, contractors that are, going out there and doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing? Why? Well, blessed is he who enters the valley of darkness, because he's truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. I'm not afraid to go to those places at all. And I think if more and more people are cool with looking at their shadow, the things that are limiting them, instead of making them wrong and projecting wrong on those things so quickly, that's part of the evolution of our species. Is, come on, guys, let's realize that we got 8 billion people on this planet. There's like 6 primary personality types. There's like 17 different problems a person can have. At the end of the day, that's not a whole lot of difference between us all. Man, I got a problem with my relationship, and I'm just embarrassed about it. Blah. 8 billion people on the planet. How many people have problems with the relationship? Stop being embarrassed about it. Let it go. Let it go. That's a useless emotion that you have got linked to that based on some belief that you need to be perfect. Oh man, I got some problems with my finances right now. I'm feeling like a failure. I should be a better man. Come on. How many people have challenges with their finances? We make these big deals out of these little rules. And again, wow. It's just like this makes us small. We got to take a look at the information that's out there and organize this intelligence in a way that allows us to optimize our minds, optimize our resources, optimize our creative potential, instead of getting caught up with this dragnet of stuff. And then buying into everybody else's anchors they're putting out there for us that are leading us in some other direction. Between those two things, we don't have any time left in the end of the day. All those external anchors and all of our preconditioned responses and precognitive commitments, we got hardly any creative potential left. It's like exhausted.
Leo, you absolutely pierced my soul with that last 5 minutes, my man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Hit home. And I see what you're doing now. After it took me a little bit. I mean, obviously it's fun to be in this kind of interview style setup that we have from a podcast standpoint. I didn't know exactly how this was going to go today, as far as like getting my my consulting company is called Delta Perspective. I'm always about shifting my perspective when it comes to business, right? Or trying to help others shift their perspectives in the way that they look at things. And it's been that way for 15 years. I've had that name for a long time. So I'm always open and being or interested in being open-minded. But what you're talking about, like to the level where we're challenging the way that we think about these little beliefs that we're holding in the world, and just decoupling that from the criticism that we give ourselves to hold space for our creative potential, is absolutely unbelievable. And then being able to share that One, what a gift to ourselves. Two, what a gift to others if we can shine the light on that for them, encourage them to do that. And then, continue to grow and evolve on a journey that has uh, a meaningful trajectory, like you're trying to set out with the courses that you have, as opposed to one that puts us back into these loops of social hypnosis, as you said earlier. I'm blown away by it. I can't wait to look into it a little bit more. Continue conversations, Leo. You're welcome on the show anytime. And as we're putting a button on it here, anything that you didn't mention today that you wanted to mention, and then any resources, links, places to go besides IamTheMatrix.com for people to learn more.
We're good.
I love it, man. Well, we will put a pin in that, and then I'd love to have you on at a later date, maybe sometime next year, to talk about how this program is growing, evolving, impacting lives, impacting collective consciousness, and the links to Leo, as well as I Am the Matrix, are located in the show notes. Appreciate you guys for listening. Another great episode. Cheers, Leo. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Jake.